Hello and welcome to Fairy Tale Friday. Last week I read Cinderella, where we got to see those two nasty stepsisters get theirs. Just saying. This week we're on to Little Redcap. Now I read a version of this from James Finn Garner's Politically Correct Bedtime Stories, but the name there was not Little Redcap. It is most commonly known as Little Red Riding Hood. Let me know in the comments down below if you recognize the name Little Red Cap. And as all Grimm stories begin, once upon a time, there lived a sweet little girl who was beloved by everyone who saw her. But her grandmother was so excessively fond of her that she never knew when to give the child enough. One day the grandmother gave the little girl a red velvet cap, which pleased her so well she would never wear anything else, and so she was called Little Redcap. One day her mother said to her, "Come, Redcap, here's a piece of nice cake and a bottle of wine. Take these to your grandmother. She is ill and weak, and will relish them. Make haste before it gets hot. Go quietly and carefully, and do not run, lest you should fall and break the bottle, for then your grandmother would get nothing. When you go into a room, do not forget to say good morning, and do not look about in all the corners." "I will do everything as you wish," replied Redcap, taking her mother's hand. The grandmother dwelt far away in the wood, half a league from the village, and as Little Redcap entered among the trees, she met a wolf. But she did not know what a wicked beast it was, so she was not at all afraid. "Good day, Little Redcap," he said. "Many thanks, Wolf," said she. "Whither away so early, Little Redcap?" "To my grandmother's," she replied. "What are you carrying under your apron?" "Cake and wine," she answered. "Yesterday we baked the cake, that grandmother, who is ill and weak, might have something nice and strengthening." "Where does your grandmother live?" asked the wolf. "A good quarter and a league further in the forest. The cottage stands under 3 great oak trees. Near it are some nut bushes, by which you'll easily know it." But the wolf thought to himself, "She's a nice tender thing, and will taste better than the old woman. I must act craftily, that I may snap them both up." So for a short time he walked beside Little Redcap, and then he said, "Just look at the beautiful flowers which grow around you. Why do you not look about? I believe you don't hear how beautifully the birds sing. You walk on as if you're going to school. See how merry everything is around you in the forest." So Little Redcap raised her eyes, and when she saw how the sunbeams glanced and danced through the trees, what splendid flowers were blooming in her path, she thought, "If I take my grandmother a fresh nosegay, she will be very pleased, and it's so very early that I can, even then, get there in good time." And running into the forest, she looked about for flowers. But when she had once begun, she did not know how to leave off, and kept going deeper and deeper among the trees in search of some more beautiful flower. The wolf, however, ran straight to the house of the old grandmother and knocked at the door. "Who's there?" asked the old lady. "Only Little Redcap, bringing you some cake and wine. Please open the door," replied the wolf. "Lift up the latch," cried the grandmother. "I'm too weak to get up." So the wolf lifted the latch, and the door flew open, and jumping without a word upon the bed, he gobbled up the poor old lady. Then he put on her clothes and tied her cap over his head, and getting into the bed, he drew the curtains. All this time Redcap was still gathering flowers, and when she had plucked as many as she could carry, she remembered her grandmother and made haste to the cottage. She wondered very much to see the door wide open, and when she got into the room she began to feel uneasy and exclaimed, "How sad I feel! I wish I'd not come today." Then she said, "Good morning," but received no answer. So she went up to the bed, drew back the curtains, and there lay grandmother, as she thought, with the cap drawn half over her eyes, looking very strange. "Oh, "Grandmother, what great ears you have!" "The better to hear you with, my child," was the reply. "And what great eyes you have!" "The better to see you with, my dear." "And what great hands you have!" "The better to touch you with." "But, grandmother, what great teeth you have!" "The better to eat you with." And scarcely were the words out of his mouth when the wolf made a spring out of the bed and swallowed up poor little Redcap. I don't know, these wolves have got to have like massive mouths to be eating people and little kids like that other story whole. As soon as the wolf had thus satisfied his appetite, he laid himself down in the bed and began to snore loudly. A huntsman passing by overheard him and thought, "How loudly the old woman snores! I must see if she wants anything." So he stepped into the cottage, and when he came to the bed, he saw the wolf lying in it. "What do I find you here, you old sinner? I've long sought you," exclaimed he, and taking aim with his gun, he shot the old wolf dead. Really? He's got a gun, not an axe? Some folks say that the last story is not the true one, but that one day when Redcap was taking some cakes to her grandmother, a wolf met her and wanted to mislead her. But she went straight on and told her grandmother that she had met a wolf who wished her good day, but he looked so wickedly out of his great eyes that she had not been on the high road he would certainly have eaten her. So the grandmother said, "Let's shut the door that he may not enter." Soon after the wolf came, who knocked and exclaimed, "I'm Redcap, grandmother, I bring you some cakes." But they kept quite still and did not open the door. So the wolf, creeping several times around the house, at last jumped on the roof, intending to wait till Redcap went home in the evening, and then to sneak after her and devour her in the darkness. The old woman, however, saw all that the rascal intended, and as there stood before the door a great stone trough, she said to little Redcap, "Take this pail, child. Yesterday I boiled some sausages in this water, so pour it into the stone trough." Redcap poured many times until the huge trough was quite full. Then the wolf sniffed the smell of the sausages and smacked his lips and wished very much to taste, and at last he stretched his neck too far over so that he lost his balance and slipped off the roof right into the great trough beneath, wherein he was drowned. Little Redcap ran home in high glee and never did anything to harm anyone. But no one sorrowed for Mr. Wolf. Wolves always get such a bad rap in these stories. Unless it's James Finn Garner's, and I have to say, I feel bad for the huntsman at the ending of that version, but I did like how that story ended with nobody dying and the household they set up afterwards. Let me know down below if you've enjoyed this story. Did you remember who Little Redcap was? Have you heard that other version with the trough? That was something that I had forgotten. Next week, we're on to Rumpelstiltskin. Let me know in the comments down below if you ever watched Once Upon a Time. I very much enjoyed that series. I think they did a great job incorporating all the different characters into it. And take good care.